Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Meter Cute interviews here on Meter and Mayhem. Today, I'll be chatting with Mona Mehas about her new chapbook, Questions I Didn't Know I'd Asked, out now from LJ McDeague Communications. Her next collection, Hand-Me-Downs, will be out from the same publisher in July of 2024. Her poetry and prose highlights her perspective as a disabled retired teacher and has been nominated for a pushcart and received first place in a recent Poetry Society of Indiana contest. She lives in Indiana, where she's at work on a science fiction novel. Want to find out more about her work? So do I. Sit back, relax, and get ready to fall in love.
My name is Mona, and I am going to be reading from Questions I Didn't Know I'd Asked. This is my chapbook inspired by tarot and oracle. The first one I'm going to read is the first poem in the book, The Queen of Tea. When tea is gone, I read the leaves, left behind in your cup, looking for signs of your future. It makes no difference what kind you drink. The leaves tell me your story. I am the queen of tea. Herbal tea carries a subtle air of rose, chrysanthemum, lavender. Rooibos identifies your wisdom. I'm charged, traipsing your crooked path, following into your psyche with ridges less defined. I gather my robes about my shoulders, my faithful dog at my side. Her smooth black head rests on my lap, sipping my cup of white peony. I gaze at leaves of green china tea, visions of water at my feet. As the queen of tea, I render service to those who need my sacrifice. You sit, your questions answered, my eyes look inward to your soul. All I ask is blueberry essence with honey stirred into my cup. I stay exhausted deep in my thoughts. You leave satisfied, your heart filled. I rinse away your tea leaves to prepare for more offerings. Lapsang Souchong in my cup. I am the queen of tea. The next poem I'm going to read is the title poem. It is called From the Depths. I actually got the title from inside the poem. In my dark, deep underbelly, where I've not yet begun to explore, quakes swell and rumble in the fight to unleash well-hidden secrets. From the depths, a ship rises through the murky haze. It breaks the surface with a whimper, the source of all my life's clamor. So profoundly buried, it lifts slowly, my chest expands with hope, and the sails take root in my lungs. From the depths of wondering, the ship answers questions I didn't know I'd asked, of loneliness and need, and others still unformed, unknown before now. As it passes through my heart, the ship brings longing and cries from ancestors. When it reaches my brain, I am complete. Great sails open, they catch the wind, my mind an ocean to serve the ship. I've never known such happiness. My joy is too perfect. My crown opens to the blinding sun in all its glory. The sails lift. It's gone. A wise person said rest is a verb. I knew on a deeper level that I existed of pure rest, but I never understood the wanderlust inside me, why I was never content in one place. The day the ship rose from the depths and passed through my heart, I understood the longing. I experienced the emptiness when it left through my crown, taking a piece of my soul. I was suddenly overwhelmed with the need to feel sand between my toes. Tomorrow, when I'm fresh, I'll remember quiet evenings with clear eyes. I'll live my truth on the page. For now, I'll anxiously await the return of the great ship, bearing my core being over the horizon. The next poem is Spinning Death into Life. I like to write in different forms. This form is called Viator. You will hear a repeating line as it moves through each stanza. There is only one experience. We clamor to avoid, but lose the battle, no matter the strength of our armor or purity, our goals, or under whose banner we choose to fight. Their legs curl underneath when they die. Trampled beneath our faithful steeds' feet, there is only one experience. Like it or not, we share the same fate. Fast in our stirrups, holding them down, more alive on their knees, skin splits, turn belly up to molt, crawl out anew. Wander away, quench our thirst. Our heart shines like a star in need of healing. There is only one experience. Naked, we dip our feet. Rivulets circle outward, searching for meaning. Taste with scopulae, spread empty web. A song in our hearts, trilling upward. Trees bear fruit on faraway hillsides. White noise, green stars encircle the sun. There is only one experience. Our empty vessel gives back to earth, patiently spinning silk from our soul. Adoration must lead to downfall. Crown of glory cuts into our brain. Our filth becomes the cage we call home. Muddy cloak, the last warmth we will know. There is only one experience. Boredom, loneliness, our enemies. I'll not die spinning my web alone. Share a cup of laughter with a friend. Under outstretched arms, broker new peace. Weave histories together. Embrace generations across verdant fields. There is only one experience. All right, this one is called World Inside Her Belly. She held the world inside her belly, sparkling crystals, dancing rubies. Lovers brought her roses and lilies and declarations of her beauty. Sparkling crystals, dancing rubies did not protect her from the struggle. With declarations of her beauty and cries for war, she would not buckle. Without protection from the struggle, she rose to face the consequences. In cries for war, she would not buckle. Honor and nature, her defenses. She rose to face the consequences. Doves and crows around her head. Honor and nature, her defenses. Her long wait over, jewels she shed. Doves and crows around her head. Wings grew closer with each swoop. Her long wait over, jewels she shed. Protection from oncoming coup. Wings grew closer with each swoop. She continued birthing jewels. Protection from oncoming coup. Birds sang of peace and world renewal. She continued birthing jewels. Lovers brought her roses and lilies. Birds sang of peace and world renewal. She held the world inside her belly. That's a tongue twister at times. All right. This is Hunger. Her hunger infinite as the absent moon, need burns within like blazing wildfire, to quench the thirst demanding blood, without sacrifice to darkness. Need burns within like blazing wildfire, cut deep the sword crowned with gold, without sacrifice to darkness, clenched fist straining into gray. Cut deep the sword crowned with gold, cloud of unfathomed knowing, clenched fist straining into gray, nerve endings hidden, sight unseen. Cloud of unfathomed knowing, pinpricks of pain, the facets reach, nerve endings hidden, sight unseen, make themselves known in screams of day. Pinpricks of pain, the facets reach, red hot pokers flash deeper yet, make themselves known in screams of day, peacemakers in guise of cortisone. Red-hot pokers flash deeper yet, rain in whispers of relief, peacemakers in guise of cortisone, false freedom at her fingertips. Rain in whispers of relief, wrap around the throat unleashed. False freedom at her fingertips provides the poison to deceive. Wrap around the throat unleashed, starvation amuck, death by thirst, provides the poison to deceive. Her hunger, infinite as the absent moon. I'll read one more. This is the last poem in the book. Wings within my heart. No body shall contain my soul, nor coffin in the cold dark ground. I will escape my spirit whole. My dreams come true in flight unbound. Wings within my heart have opened. They carry me through blissful sky. Moon and sun beside me, motion, affirmation, we do not die. All ye mourners at my bedside, shed no more tears for me today. Cast your gaze upward, see clear-eyed, my soul among the clouds at play. Thank you.
Wow, Mona, that was an amazing reading. I love the way that your work uses repetition. It really just, especially in the one about, was it She Held the World Inside Her Belly? It like traps you in the spiral with it, right? That repetition just kind of holds you in the poem. I loved the way it did that.
Thank you.
And that last poem, I don't know if you're familiar with Emily Bronte's work.
Not really.
She has a she has some poems that I feel like that really that poem can kind of speak to. Her work and Christina Rossetti's both. I think that last poem just would just love with. They could be cousin poems, sister
Cousin
poems.
poems.
Yeah. Um
Thanks.
so I was I'm wondering, um, what what book has caused the most mayhem in your life?
Well, when I was 18 or 19, I picked a book off the library shelf in a tiny little town called LaPel, Indiana, and the book was Surfacing by Margaret Atwood, and I was dumbfounded. Um, I think I was 19, and I read that probably 4 or 5 times before I would turn 21 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
I am not familiar with that book. So what I've read some Margaret Atwood, but I haven't read that one. So tell me a little bit about it and what really grabbed you about it.
Well, it was written in 1972. It was maybe 225 pages, maybe a novella in today's terms. Um, it told the story of a young woman who was working in the big city, and she was from a remote island in Canada, and she got news that her father was missing. So she goes back to the island with a couple of friends and her boyfriend and her experiences there. I don't know if you know this, but a lot of Margaret Atwood's earlier work has been studied. I mean, like really studied. There have been papers written, professional type papers written on her earlier work, and including this book. The way she turns phrases, and so in this book, the protagonist, who you never really learn her name,
Hmm.
but she has to face not just what happened to her father, but what happened to her herself in her past. and she goes through some stuff,
Mm.
and it's really deep. So that's why I had to read it a few times.
Yeah. And at a very kind of influential age there. You said like between 18 and 21, right?
Yes, yes, yes. And then a few years ago, I think it was during like the height of the pandemic. I have a bonus daughter. I'm no longer married to her father, but she lives in another state. And we were reading books together and then talking about them on the phone like every week. And I suggested this book. And boy, it was trippy for her to read this book. Uh, so that was maybe my sixth time of reading Surfacing. And it was interesting for her because she kind of got it and she kind of didn't. It's, yeah,
And was she in that 18 to 21 age range when she read it, or was she
older.
older?
Yeah, 30 something. Yeah, it's an interesting, deep, very deep book. I'm not going to tell you what happens. I want you to read it.
Okay, I'll put it. I have a growing TBR list from all of these interviews. I just everyone I come out with more and more. Um,
Yeah, and I have a really cool story of meeting Margaret Atwood too.
oh,
Yeah. So in the early 90s, she came to Indiana at a library near me. It was when Alias Grace
okay.
was first out, and I haven't read it yet, but she spoke about it at the library, and I brought Surfacing with me to get her autograph. And so the line to meet her and get her autograph was incredibly long. And I had corresponded with her previous to this. I had written her a letter because I how much I loved Surfacing and a couple of her other books, but especially Surfacing. And she had written me back. So I brought all that with me. And so when I finally got to her at the table, I showed her all that and my book, which she signed. But when I said, you know, I've been waiting in line for, no, I said I've been waiting like 20 years. She said, the line's that long? Yeah. Yeah, it was fun.
Nice. Well, okay, so you don't want to tell me what happens in Surfacing, but can
Right.
you tell me how was your life different after you read it? How was your life different?
I think I matured more than I would have. It helped me understand, it helped really helped me understand women's issues because she's has always been a type of a feminist and um even when she wasn't quite aware of it and even that in that early writing um and she would say that I think so that does have to do with women's issues and what a young woman goes through with her father and with other men and what she has to do to survive and what she puts out of her mind because she can't bear to think of it.
Hmm.
And then when she comes to realize it, it kind of all comes back to her while she's there on that island searching for her father.
Ah.
Yeah, it kind of all comes to a head there. So, I became aware at the same time that I was reading that book. I think it really helped me grow. So,
It's good to have books like that in our
yeah,
lives.
yeah, it is.
Um, are there any poets that you
Oh,
also
yeah, yeah,
love and feel
yeah,
connected to?
yeah. I love Ursula K. Le Guin as a novelist and a poet. I've always loved E. Cummings since I was a little girl. And I love Lorna Crozier. She is a Canadian poet.
I'm gonna write her name down so I
So you
don't.
probably know Ursula K. Le Guin
Yeah,
and E. Cummings.
yeah.
But you
Um,
probably don't know Lorna Crozier.
I don't know her work at all. What do you love about her work?
Magical is the first word that comes to my mind. Um, I have two or three of her books. Um, she is able to paint with her words. Um, it's that's that's the only way I can say it. It's magical. It's like I'm reading a painting.
Oh wow.
Yeah, or yeah, yeah.
What is your favorite poem of hers? Do you
Oh
have, and I
gosh.
think you've got the book. Yeah, if
Yeah,
you want to read one of her
I
poems, I'd
do.
love to hear
Yeah.
one.
My favorite book of hers is called God of Shadows.
Okay.
And she writes God of fill in the blank. There's God of everything in here. And so um I have a couple bookmarked, but this one is called God of Dogs. And my throat is getting really dry for some reason. I'm sorry. But this one is called God of Dogs. She thought she was going to be the God of gods. Her disappointment, however, didn't last. Her mortal flock ended up enchanting her. Their exuberance is like a tired fountain suddenly exploding with noisy water. She'll always be the youngest of the immortals. Homo sapiens have it wrong. Don't multiply a pooch's age by 7. Divide your own. Somewhere, while you're doing the math, a mountain dog is digging through a snowdrift to a muffled cry. A water dog is holding a child's head above the waves. A mutt is hanging on to the arm of a thug who tried to strike his master. Emily Dickinson wrote it in a letter. I hope you love dogs too. It's economical. It saves going to heaven. She actually said, I hope you love birds too. But it could have been dogs if she'd been less timid, less housebound. Don't you agree?
I love the turn that poem took there at the end.
And they're all prose poems in here, almost all of them.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah,
Um, I'm writing that down so I can remember.
yeah,
Keeping my notes.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
wow. So, um, what advice would you give if you could go back to an earlier version of yourself? What kind of advice would you give? Either that version of yourself who's reading surfacing multiple times or at a later age? What would you say?
Lots of things. Um, I do have a poem um that was published in this. It's called Spurned, and it was published by Gnashing Teeth, Gnash, Gnashing Teeth
Okay.
Publications.
It's quite
Spurned,
quite a cover.
and it's teeny tiny. See how tiny it is. Um, but this is advice I'd give to my 30-year-old self. Now I could go back further, but this is advice to my 30-year-old self. If I could go back 37 years, I'm giving away my age, but I'm older now. I would tell her, don't marry Jeff. Don't believe David when he says he'll love you forever. Go into the writing program in college. Study what you like, not what they say you should. Pay more attention to your daughter. Listen to your mother, but don't drink as much as she did. Take your daughter on vacations, just you and her. Be more careful about the men you choose. Get to know Bill for a year before you make a decision. Dance more, drink less, sing, get a dog. it always goes back to dogs for me.
I know, like we're coming back to dog. Are you a very firm dog person, or do cats have any space in your world?
I have always had cats, always. But the last husband I had wouldn't let me have a dog. So I I have a dog. I've had two dogs. Now I have since, since he and I have split. He's gone now, but yeah, I have a dog. Lost a dog and two cats since 2020. So now I have another dog.
Oh, that's that that is rough. That's a lot of losing of
Yeah,
companions.
yeah. But I never met a dog that didn't like me. I'm saying that.
Well,
Yeah.
that's a good sign. They say that dogs have are good judges of character.
Well, that's good.
I love how that poem, um, like you think it's when the poem starts, you think it's going to be primarily about relationships with men, and by the end of the poem, it's not. It takes this turn where it's about these relationships with your daughter, with your mother, um, and those
Yeah,
kind of things. I love that. I love that turn.
yeah. Most of my work takes a turn in one way or another. Yeah, and I often write with form, like you heard in the other reading, the viator, the villanelle, the pantoum. A lot of my work is in form.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Um, and secretly unbeknownst to you, it also has a lot of meter in it too. I know you say that you don't, but and interestingly enough, at least in the stuff that you were reading in the beginning, a lot of trochees, which um if which is the stuff that's stressed and then unstressed. Um, and have you studied much with Annie Finch? Do you know Annie Finch's work?
No, and I have not studied writing much, um, at all. I went to college when I was 27, and I wanted to go into the writing program, and I also loved history. Um, so they told me, "Oh no, you can't do that. You won't get a job." So when I first entered college at 27, in I think it was the second freshman composition class, where they give you all these kinds of things you're supposed to write with or write about. Um, I didn't want to follow all those instructions. I went up to the instructor and I said, "Look, I can do all this stuff, but I really don't want to. I'll make you a deal." I said, "How about if I answer all your questions and I do all your writing assignments on the book Surfacing by Margaret Atwood?" And she said, "How are you going to do that?" And I said, "Well, how about I do the first one and you tell me if I can do the rest of them?" And she said, "Okay." So I did the first assignment using surfacing, whatever the first assignment was, and I got an A. So I did every single assignment in my second freshman composition class with Margaret Atwood's surfacing, and I got an A in the class. I
That's
left,
fabulous.
and so yeah, and so I just didn't, I never have done any regular. I've never had any regular writing training, honestly. My mother taught me to write poetry when I was 5, sitting at the kitchen table.
Had you expressed an interest in poetry, or did she just say, "Mona, I see a poet in you. Let's do this"?
Well, I loved to read and I loved to be read to. And she had given me a little children's book of poetry. And oh, I loved it. And so I don't even know how old I was, maybe 10. that was that. So that came later. But yeah, she read to me all the time. Yeah, it just kind of came naturally. And she was a good writer. I have some of her poems. So yeah, it just happened.
Huh. So what did you end up majoring in college? Because I know you're a retired teacher now, right?
Yeah, I just majored in education. Back then you could do that. I don't think you can do that now. I think you have to major in whatever subject you're going to teach now. And so I majored in education and I taught science and
Oh,
social studies in middle school, but I ended up teaching English also, because in my district they needed English teachers as well. And I said, I'll do it. So, um, sure, why not? So, and then if you get so many hours in the classroom, in the English classroom, you are certified. This isn't going on now. It was back then.
yeah, I think you have to have a bunch of other stuff before that.
Yeah, yeah. So I was licensed for science up to grade 9, history and social studies through grade 12, 5 through 12, and then English, um, probably 5 through 12, certified anyway. I never knew. I just did it.
As long as they were telling you to do it, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, so you got to inspire other potential future writers and as an English
I
teacher.
hope. I hope. Yeah. I hope
What
so.
what was your favorite class to teach of all those things that you've taught? What was your favorite?
Oh my gosh. 8th grade history. That was fun.
What did because when I was so when I was in eighth grade, we didn't have history per se. We had social studies class.
Yes.
And that
Yeah.
was like that was the year that we memorized the Constitution, the preamble to the Constitution, and we learned we did like a fake town and so that we could learn about mills and like how millage works on taxes. Don't know how that all fit together, but what was eighth grade history? What did you teach them?
I don't remember all of it, but I remember that we had debates and they participated. Um, I think I think the main reason I liked it best was at that time I was teaching science and social studies, and I liked social studies better. And I was teaching 7th and 8th grade both. And the 8th graders seemed to mature. I mean, it's like the difference between 7th and 8th grade is like night and day. They're they're aliens in 7th grade and they're humans in 8th grade.
Oh,
So, you know, so they were able to participate and communicate, and it was fun and they learned. Um, I know that we debated a lot of things that happened in our history. We had debates and, um, just games. Uh, it was fun. That's why I liked it.
nice. Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, thinking about younger folks, what advice do you think if a younger version of you somehow got in a time machine and showed up in your living room right now, what kind of advice do you think that she would have for you?
I tried to think of this. Well, I think she would probably say, I need to, um, get it together and get back to the writing. I've got this novel that I'm working on. I have one novel that's done, and I'm going to be querying agents soon. as soon as my reader gets done with it and tells me if I'm okay. The second one is kind of a sequel to it. It is a sequel to it. But I'm kind of stuck. I'm just stuck. I think she would say, I think she'd kick me. Like, get moving on this. That's what I think she'd do.
So get moving on this and read Surfacing again.
Oh, probably. Yeah. Yeah, probably so. Yeah. Although I was looking up stuff on surfacing before you and I connected here. Um, and I have actually used some of the ideas from surfacing in my first book, in the first novel. For example, one of the lines that I loved in surfacing was I can't quote it exactly unless I look it up again, but it was a fish jumps and then in her mind when she's kind of psyching out, I'll say, an image of a fish jumps. And then she sees it as a wooden fish. So a fish jumps from the lake, but then she sees it as an image of a fish. And then it's a wooden fish. And so I kind of used that play in my novel in one point when something really bad happens to my point of view character. It's like
Oh,
when she's in shock, you know. So yeah.
that that's very cool. So I need to read Surfacing, and then once your novel finds itself a home and comes out, then I need to read your novel so I can compare.
Yes. Yeah, well, that's probably the only place. Because mine's science fantasy.
Well, we
Yeah.
get inspiration coming from all kinds of different places to
Uh-huh. Yeah.
help us build the things that we love.
Yeah. Yeah. I love Ursula K. Le Guin's ecumen, and so I've I've tried to also learn a lot from her uh and her writing style. So yeah.
Well, we're clicking by on our time. So
Oh,
thank you so much for coming on today. I've loved getting to talk with you and getting to know about Lorna Crozier. Is that, am I
yeah,
saying that
yes.
right? Okay. And Margaret Atwood and I've got lots more to add to my to be read list. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
What a fun interview that was. I hope you had as much fun listening as I had talking. But you know what? I feel like I'm not quite done listening to Mona's poems. I would love to hear another one. Wouldn't you? Let's hear one more.
I have another book of poetry coming out in July. It is called Hand Me Downs. Um, the poetry is generational trauma memoir in poetry form. And this is one poem from that book. It is called Secret Medicine. I go about my days in my pajamas, perched at my laptop, drinking coffee until 2. Poetry workshops lift my spirit, helping while away the hours, while the snow falls outside my window. The poet laureate speaks of her elders and the language of her heart, but the time for learning slips through my fingers. I score my life in punctuation with invisible armor protecting the soft places. I'm told to be who I am, but there's nothing new in winter when cycles slow and my breath labors. A life consists of carefully selecting which details to include and what to leave out. How can I choose which life to write about? The young, vibrant woman in the prime of life, chasing after her future, or the woman disappointed with the future she caught? And if I chose, what would I say? What would it matter? My secret medicine became poison years ago. There is nothing efficient about aging. Thank you.
Ah, now that feels like we're done. Okay. If you are interested in reading more of Mona's work, you can pick up her chat book that's out now, or you can, or why and you can pick up her collection that's coming out later in the summer as well in 2024. If you're seeing this after 2020, July of 2024, just go out, get it right now. Nothing stopping you. You can also, Mona and I are in the Honoring Our Ancestors from Spelljar Press together, and we will be in the Moonwater anthology from Spelljar Press together as well, which will be out by the time this airs, but is not out at the time of recording. So if you want to hear our work together, pick up some of that good stuff from Spelljar Press. Thanks for stopping by.